Hey everybody, Randy Schwantz here for another episode of Agency Growth Machine, sponsored by Big Nation Growth Simplified. Hey look, Phil Mickelson won the PGA tournament just a couple of weeks ago. And I want to make the case it's not because he was a better golfer. He won because he controlled his mind better. And I want to take some things out of this book called It Takes What It Takes. It's by Trevor, Moawad. It was forward written by Russell Wilson. Everybody knows Russell. Russell's quarterback for Seattle Seahawks. And Trevor says in the book, winning in any competitive event means you take something from someone else who wants exactly what it is you took. What is winning? Taking from someone else exactly who wants exactly what it is you took. That's what winning is. You both want the same thing. You took it, they didn't get it. Boom, there it goes. Phil Mickelson won the PGA. All those other guys wanted to win. They wanted to win badly. How did he win? I'm making the case they're all superbly physically talented. They're all amazing golfers. Phil had the habit of being ahead and in the lead and then blowing it on Sunday. Phil hired a mind coach, a mindfulness coach. Phil learned how to meditate. Phil learned how to control his emotions and get real about what's going on. And so in Trevor's book, he says a lot of cool things. And one of the biggest things that gets in our way is what he calls a bias. What is a bias? A bias is prejudice in favor or against one thing. Like, you know, like if you're going to have a car, I'm biased toward a Porsche. I like a Porsche. I think all the other cars are cool, but I'm biased toward that. I think it looks better, feels better, sounds better, runs better, all that sort of stuff. Does it really? I have no clue. It's a bias that I have. Flip side of it, I have no bias on golf clubs. TaylorMade, Titleist, Ping, Callaway, I could care less. No bias. I don't. So what he's saying here is that our bias, this prejudice both in favor or against something, is what gets in our way. And that the bias is buzzing around in our psyche: confirmation bias, selection bias, negativity bias, recency bias, gender bias, blah, blah, blah. So here's the point. It's hard to clearly perceive reality when your subconscious is busily prejudging it. What is reality? Well, our other good friend, Ray Dalio, wrote the book called Principles. Ray Dalio is a hedge fund, built the biggest hedge fund, over $100 billion. His net worth is $17 or $18 billion. And he's talking about being a hyper-realist. He said, understanding, accepting, and working with reality is both practical and beautiful. He said, I have become such of a hyper-realist that I've learned to appreciate the beauty of all realities, even harsh ones, and have come to despise impractical idealism. And he goes on to say truth, or more precisely, an accurate understanding of reality. So when you have biases, you don't clearly see reality for what it is. And so what's the deal here? Because Russell Wilson was in some game, he'd thrown 4 interceptions, maybe it's a Super Bowl game. And so the bias that I just can't throw today could have totally messed up his ability to make a comeback. But instead of letting that bias be that, he just looked at reality one play at a time, and figure out how to go play the game. So how does this relevant to us as salespeople? Okay, what's reality? Well, the reality is you're a human being at a certain age and you make your living selling insurance. You make your living when people buy insurance from you. You make your living when you get your competition fired. You make your living when you prospect, set appointments, win it, and grow a huge book of business. That is making a living in the insurance business. A bias might say, well, all buyers are price buyers. That would be wrong. If they were price buyers, nobody would ever win by BOR. They're value buyers. Now, the question is, what do they value? Second bias might be that cold calling doesn't work. So then you never pick the phone to make a cold call. Another bias might be that buyers don't want to give you red hot introductions, that to ask them for an introduction on purpose, intentionally, would be violating some sort of special relationship that you have and taking advantage and imposing on them. So those are all biases. But the truth is, cold calls do work, red hot introductions do work, incumbent does have to get fired for you to win, and there's just truths out there. So the more you focus on truth rather than fiction, the better you are positioned to see things for what they are, make great decisions, move on. Let me just give you another thing to consider. Big deal in my life. Over here, like right up there, you can see it. I got 4 daughters, 1, 2, 3, 4. A truth is, if I continue to live, particularly as I was younger and they were younger, I had a responsibility to raise those kids. Now, we could raise them a lot of different ways. I mean, this is where you're making choices. But the choice that we made is we wanted to put them, good education, good college, pay for weddings, give them a nice car, not a rent-a-rack. And then I wanted to also create freedom for Lori and I. So now when you get down to truth is how much money does that take? Unless you've done the calculation and got absolutely real about what it's going to cost to put those kids in college, buy cars, pay for weddings, fund your own retirement. And my experience says that out of thousands of producers I've talked to, when I've asked the question, how much money do you need to make? How much money do you need to save? And how long do you need to save that kind of money to be able to prepay for all that stuff so that you have financial freedom? Most people don't know. So they're not dealing in reality or truth. They're dealing in some sort of bias, prejudging that everything's going to work out. They're an optimist. Well, you can be an optimist, you can be a pessimist, or you can just be a realist, looking to go right down the path in the middle. And that's really what this book's about. So I want to move over here to a chapter that I find incredibly interesting. Let me just see if I can get to it over a couple more pages. It was a lot that he had to do with saving another guys. Page 69 in the book, It Takes What It Takes. And the title of the chapter is Hard Choices. It takes hard choices. And he's talking about Vince Carter. Vince is a great NBA basketball player. And they were both doing a speaking engagement, a bunch of NFL guys. And 70% of this group of college players thought they'd make it in the NFL, where the reality is, the hardcore reality is only about 10% make it. So 60% are living some dream rather than reality. And he goes, Vince was amazed that so many players could have such a goal, listen to this, while behaving in ways so counter to what it would take to actually achieve that goal. So I'm wondering, do you have a goal to be financially free? Do you have a goal to be $1 million producer? What is your goal, for crying out loud? And then the question is, are you behaving in a way that is in concert with achieving that goal? Or are you behaving in a way that is counter to achieving that goal? Here's what I mean by that. Suppose you want to be $1 million producer. That is either 50 accounts with 20,000 in revenue, or 20 accounts with 50,000 in revenue, or 100 accounts with 10,000 in revenue. Okay, so that all adds up to being $1 million. All right, so to win those accounts, if you're going to be real about it, it takes a certain level of knowledge and expertise that is better, superior to your competition. So you got to know more than your competition. Secondly, you got to be great at setting appointments. There's a minimum number of appointments you have to set with a minimum number of close rate and all that sort of stuff to get there. And so somebody who was behaving in a way that was in concert with being $1 million producer would have it all mapped out, and there's very few choices. Here's what you have to do to be $1 million producer. So in this book, Trevor was talking about how he dealt with Saban a lot. And Saban bought into Trevor's way of thinking, this neutral thinking about getting real about the reality, about what you had to do to win, accomplish what you want to accomplish. And he goes on and he says, Saban's doing this speech. He goes, they all think they have these choices. Like, I can do whatever I want to do. And you kind of have this younger generation now that doesn't always get told no. Here's the other part. they don't always get told this is exactly how you need to do it. So they have this illusion that they have all these choices. But the matter of fact is, if you want to be good, you really don't have a lot of choices because it takes what it takes. Hence the title of the book. It takes what it takes to be good. You can't be awesome, an awesome golfer, and not stretch, not work out, not work on your cardio, not work on your swing, not have a good mental game. You can't have all those knots and be a great world-class golfer. It takes what it takes. You look at, go back to Phil. Phil's always been supremely talented, but he hasn't always won. You could say that Tiger Woods had a much stronger mental game than what Phil did. And so Saban's making the point, if you want to be good, you really don't have a lot of choices because it takes what it takes. You have to do what you have to do to be successful. So you have to make choices and decisions to have the discipline and the focus to the process of what you need to do to accomplish your goals. All right, so that right there is a book unto itself. If you want to be good, you really don't have a lot of choices because it takes what it takes. So the question is, what does it take to be $1 million producer? You have to do what you have to do to be successful, or we could say you have to do what you have to do to be $1 million producer. Well, what do you have to do? Well, you have to find a way to prospect and set appointments. You have to find a way to go on sales calls and win the business. You have to find a way to retain those businesses, stack it up, so now you have $1 million book. So you have to make choices and decisions to have the discipline and the focus to the process of what? The process of what? The process of prospecting the right people, the right size of accounts. You have to have a discipline and focus to the process of what you're going to say to be able to turn that relationship into an appointment. You have to have a discipline and a focus to the process of what you need to do to then turn that prospect into an account. You need to have the discipline and focus to the process of converting that account, something that you want, into a lifetime retained account. And you need to do that to accomplish your goals. Hence, it all starts out with what? Well, for me, it was easy with 4 girls. After having done the math with a financial advisor, this guy said to me clearly, because I wanted, at that point, I felt like I needed a little over $2 million in my retirement account. I had to pay for 4 cars, 4 weddings, and 4 universities. He did a calculation. I had a 20-year time frame. At that point, I was 40, about 42. He said in 20 years at 62, if you do, say, $65,000 a year at, say, 6 or 7% return on your investment, and you do that year after year after year after year after year, you'll funded all that stuff that you projected, and you'll have lower $2 million in the bank. So that was the goal. So then you reverse engineer, okay, what discipline? Well, discipline is every year I got to make enough that after paying for all overhead, private school, competitive sports, cars, mortgage, electricity, a lawn guy, a pool guy, all that stuff, because I was traveling all the time. I didn't have time to do that. Then you have to make enough to pay for that, pay your taxes, and then have left over $65,000. So you had to have a discipline and a focus. You had to know what you want. The mission was make enough money to save 65 grand a year. So put all this up here to ask you is, A, do you have a clear mission and or goal? Do you have a process? And have you sat there and built the discipline and focus to get there? And now we go back to the bias. Well, some people say, well, I don't need to do that because the money will be there. Other people go, why would I ever try? There's no way I could ever make that much money. And neither one of those are true. The truth is, if you prospect this way, if you sell this way, if you retain this way, you will predictably grow $1 million book of business. If you grow $1 million book of business, then you'll predictably make $350,000, $400,000 a year, somewhere in that range. You'll pay Uncle Sam their share. You'll have a living expense, and then you'll be able to save a lot, make a lot. You save a lot, and you'll be able to get there. So I think this whole thing about the illusion of choice, and whether you're a producer or your agency owner, I mean, it's the same thing. It's like there's a certain discipline and focus to the process of developing producers. If you're an agency owner, you got to teach producers to prospect, sell, and retain. So therefore, you got to be in the training business. Oh, Randy, I shouldn't have to train. Well, it doesn't matter if you think you should or shouldn't. Being a hyper realist like Ray Dalio, who's worth $18 billion, would say, deal with reality. Reality is, if you don't train them, who will? They work for you. It's your responsibility. It's the secret to you accomplishing that goal that you want. Train them. And then secondarily is, then coach them to perform under pressure. Back to this book, Russell Wilson, In the Game. It comes back, he says there's 3 things he focused on. Oh man, I could probably find it if I just kept looking, but it was he had 3 simple things. It's almost like balance, staying in the moment, and something else. Oh gosh, I wish I'd highlighted that so I could find it, but I didn't. Doesn't matter. Not right now anyway. So perform under pressure. What's the pressure? I'm in meeting with a prospect that's got $20, $30, $40, $50,000 of revenue. You got to stay in the moment. Focus on my questions. I got to be good at confirming the problem. I got to be good at getting a solution on the table. I got to be good at getting a commitment on the table. I mean, it's just primarily, that's what I have to do. Stay in the moment and do those things. Problem, solution, commitment, so that you can win the business. So a lot of great stuff here that, as you can tell, I don't need to pretend. I'm reading through this book. I'm one read, maybe a read and a half ahead of you. And I'm sitting there trying to think through, what does this mean to you? What does this mean to me? To take away the biases and look at the truth for what it is. If you're a client of mine, I'd like to retain you forever. The fact is, if I don't find ways to get this in front of you and have you absorb it, if I don't find ways to get you on our CRM platform and use it, then the chances that you'll stay for a long time are slim. That's just truth. It doesn't matter how optimistic I am and how good I think it all is. I got to find ways to deliver that to you and create that vacuum or that magnet. That's just being realistic. So then, how do I do that? How do I get the metrics in front of you? How do I get the coaching and training in front of you? How do I do all that sort of stuff so that I can win my game? And I win my game by helping you win your game. All right, see if we can wrap this dude up. Number 1, get rid of your biases. Look at what's going on, hyperrealism, look at the truth, find out what reality is. Reality is you're a certain age, you have a certain book of business, you wrote so much, your average account size is X, your closing ratio is X. Hyper reality. Don't need to sit there and say it's worse than what it is or better than what it is. Hyper reality. Then over here, you have a goal, and your goal is either black and white or fluffy like a marshmallow. And so I'm an advocate, go get a clear goal. Do you want to have a $2 million, $3 million, $4 million bank account when you decide to retire? Okay, well then you go set that goal and then reverse engineer and say, now how much do I have to save every year? At what interest rate does it have to grow for it to grow into that kind of money? Hyper-realism. Then you sit there and back that into now behaviors. And what really drives our behaviors is, and I've kind of got this little deal that experience drives belief, belief drives actions or behaviors, and those behaviors then drive your results. Experience drives your belief, belief drives your action, action drives your results. So if you're not getting the results you want, go all the way back and change your experiences. How do you change your experiences? Well, same thing that all of us do. Read different books that motivate you and give you process and put you in a direction based on truth and fact and reality. Become a hyper realist, like our friend Ray Dalio says right here in his book, Principles. Journal every day. Build a meditation practice. and grow you and your skills through this experiential thing that then changes your beliefs about what you're capable of doing. See, if you don't think you're capable, you'll never attack it. If you believe you're capable, then you'll go do it. That's why it's so interesting that I'm going to be doing a session here in a little while on red introductions. Teaching the session is easy. Getting people out of their own way and the mental blocks of asking is the hard part, because they don't believe they're worthy. They don't believe their client would want to help them. They don't believe. So then we got to go back to create a new experience to then open up a new belief, to then go ask for introductions, and then go get the result. All right. There's some cool stuff here, and I'm gonna reread it, keep reading it. One is about becoming your own advertising agency. And what he means by that is that when you think about that belief or that soundtrack we have going in our minds, somebody says we have somewhere between 60 and 120,000 thoughts a day. And so we're always talking to ourselves. As I've been sitting here talking to you right now, you've been having thoughts, you've going on these little diversions, little trips in your head, thinking about whether it's about your kids and saving money, what kind of interest rate should you do, how big a pot of money should you have. Chances are you've been thinking about yourself. So by becoming your own advertising agency, you're marketing to you about buying into you and becoming the future that you want. And you seek to block out a lot of the interference out there in the form of constant negative news, the CNN network, all sorts of chatter and talk about politics and religion, that if anything, it just destroys your self-esteem instead of builds it. So becoming your own marketing agent is you marketing to you, watching that soundtrack, saying positive things. And one of the deals that Trevor says a lot is that that self-talk has a huge influence on you, a lot more than I'll ever be able to influence you, or your dad, or your mom, or your teacher, or your priest, or whoever. That your own self-talk is the biggest influencer. And so say smart things. And then he goes, quit saying stupid shit out loud about you. Quit saying things about you like, I can't do that, I'm not good enough, I can't make that work. Don't do that. Become your own marketing agency about what you want and build that language. So anyway, we're going to get into a bunch of these little things. There's a lot of meat here. I wish I was able to better prepare, but I feel a little bit fragmented because there's so much meat and I'm struggling to focus. So please forgive me on that. But I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep coming at you. So anyway, there you go. Another version of Agency Growth Machine sponsored by Big Nation, which is a combination platform of all sales training and CRM put together. It's a growth simplified. Let's talk to you soon. Thanks.
If you're tired of the copy, quote, and pray type of business where selling becomes very complex and difficult, and you want to boost it up so that you're winning by BOR, larger accounts, then look, just take a moment and sign up for the Wedge Workshop, and I'll be there to coach you through to stop selling and start winning by BOR.